Excellent. Well, good afternoon, everybody. My name is Gary Derheim. I lead managed services, marketing, and business development for PTP. So, really excited to have the team here today. Um, Obviously, for those of you that know PTP and what we do well, I mean, we are cloud enablers. We're looking to provide work to innovative companies that are doing exciting things in the cloud and just provide the resources to enable that vision. So whether that be cost optimization, engineering resources, cloud management, SecOps, you name it. We've got a suite of services that we can deliver to be able to help that. And so today's conversation is really going to focus on the cloud platform that our Peak Plus organization, our managed services organization, leverages to help deliver that value back to our customers. And so we've got Hong with us today. He's a cloud architect for PTP. He leads a lot of the services that we deliver, leveraging these platform tools, providing the visibility and insight into cost optimization, security best practices, and just kind of the visibility into your cloud environment from a management perspective. So excited to have Hong here with us to kind of talk about some of the things that we've done and the impact that we've had. And then we've got two fantastic partners that are now partners themselves to join. So CloudCheckr, who's been kind of a day one partner for PTP that allows us to do some of the resale and optimization of AWS to our customers, and then Spot, which is a really interesting conversation around reserved instances and automating reserved instances. And so we've got Kevin McGrath and Todd Bernhard here from those organizations, and I'm going to let them introduce themselves, once we kind of get into the discussion. So the format for today, if you haven't been part of one of our panel discussions before, really relaxed, comfortable. I've just got kind of a number of questions that I'm going to ask the panel team, and just kind of really try to elicit their expertise and insight on their platforms and the market in AWS, et cetera. And so we'll just kind of continue to do a roundtable a little bit here. If you've got specific questions that come up that I don't answer, certainly feel free to pop those into the chat or to the Q&A. I'll kind of moderate that and keep an eye on it as some of the panelists are responding to some questions. So we will be, I do have this session recorded. We'll go ahead and kind of edit it up once this is done, and we'll post it on PTP's website and certainly share it out. So if you have peers that might be interested in some of the content today, certainly feel free to share that. But with that, let's go ahead and kind of just dive into the conversation. And like I said, as I kind of bounce each of these questions to the panelists, maybe just take a second or two or however long to just provide a little bit of background on your role and responsibility within your organization. So our attendees kind of have the context on that. But I'd like to start, I think, Todd, and bring that first question to you. Those of you that have paid attention, there's been some consolidation, acquisition by NetApp of CloudCheckr, acquisition of Spot by NetApp, and then kind of the partnership between the two organizations. So maybe just at a high level, so our attendees understand the context of that. Can you just maybe explain the motivation behind bringing together CloudCheckr and Spot and kind of what that looks like?
Sure. So, and just real briefly, my name's Todd Bernhard. I've been at CloudCheckr over 5 years. So, and during that time, we were partners with Spot. So, it really, I don't want to be corny about it, but it's like in that Jerry Maguire movie, You Complete Me, right? We mesh very well together. The features that CloudCheckr brings to the table and the features that Spot brings really complement each other quite nicely. So, there's very little overlap. We really they make us better. It has a lot to do with automation. You mentioned earlier the things that we do. We do reporting and recommendations and cost allocation and invoicing and security, and they add a layer of automation that sort of makes it hands off. And when you're talking about managing the cloud at scale, you have to use automation. So I was really excited when the news broke in October and the deal closed in November. But Kevin, I'm sure you have thoughts as well.
Yeah, I mean, I think Todd said it well. It's very complementary services that fit together. CloudCheckr does a lot of things that we didn't do, or if we tried to do them, we definitely weren't doing them as good as CloudCheckr. And then when you combine the visibility, the best practices, the security, all the things that CloudCheckr has represented from a financial perspective on how to look at and run your cloud business, all the way down to what are those checks that you need to do, and then being able to turn on automation after that, being able to actually have the tools to say like, hey, this isn't only a report that I'm going to give to my dev team or my finance team or something like that, and then ask them to go do something about it. Is I actually have a mechanism to turn on some automation and make it happen. Like, how do I actually make reservations work for me? How do I actually optimize a scaling VM application? How do I optimize a Kubernetes cluster? How can I do all of these different things, but have a push button way to do it? And CloudCheckr kind of came from that top down. They started with the bill and then worked their way down. We were starting at the bottom with actually how to deploy the applications and scale. We were working our way up to the financials, and putting it together kind of gives us that full vertical of everything from the build down to the instance itself, and then as wide as we want to go with applications that are deployed to the cloud.
Oh, that's fantastic, and the automation I think is just phenomenal, and that's I think really where a lot of people in our experience have gotten stuck. Is it's one thing to be able to provide them some really detailed recommendations, and it was another thing for them to be able to kind of put that in action. And so that's I think what we're certainly really excited to talk about today. Hong, I'd love to just come back to you. Probably a year and a half ago or so, you did a fantastic explainer video for PTP. I think it's actually our highest watched video that we've ever produced. So continue to give Hong internal kudos for that. This time I'll give him some external kudos for that one. It really taught the difference between traditional reserved instances and what AWS introduces, kind of the AWS savings plan, and give our customers a context for the difference there. So can you briefly just kind of touch on that, and then layer on top of that how the Spot RIs are different?
Sure. Just making sure I'm not on mute. Yeah. So thanks for the kudos. Compared to the classic, on-demand pricing, reserved instance or RIs, it's AWS way of offering significant discounts in exchange, for commitment that to a certain usage level over a period of time. The discount level varies depending on how long you're committing, 1 year or 3 years, and in combination with that is how you pay the commitment, either all upfront, partial upfront, or no upfront. There are two options for RIs, standard and convertible. There are benefits and restrictions to both, but you can check out my video on our website to learn more, or click here. So that's RIs at a very high level. Going to the savings plan. Savings plan is the newer of the two offerings, in which it provides similar savings to RIs with the same commitment length for time as well as payment options. But what you get with savings plans is a more flexible model for your AWS compute usage. You don't get locked down into certain instance types like RI, which makes you can change instance family more in a more cost-efficient way. Basically, you're purchasing a bucket of compute hours at a discounted rate, and that applies to your instances as you use them. There's two types of savings plan: compute savings plan and EC2 instance savings plan. You want to learn more about that, definitely check out my video. Understanding both of these savings mechanisms, can help you take advantage to lower your cloud spend. But there's challenges to both, even though they do offer some flexibility. You are limited to a fixed price resource over that committed time. Amazon do allow you to resell unused reserve instances on their marketplace, but that you must manually manage them. to ensure, optimal usage. So CloudCheckr already provides great RI recommendations, but Spot takes that, as the guys was saying, takes that and put that into action, provided automated coverage while removing all that management overhead that comes with purchasing, selling RIs, savings plans directly with AWS. So Spot RI program, or Eco, analyzes cloud usage, billing data on all the accounts, as well as taking marketplace and industry data into consideration to come up with a customized strategy. These strategy formulate a portfolio with an ideal mix of commitment purchases and maximize savings while providing the most flexibility for customers' current and future workload. Then no changes on the customer's environment really needed. They can continue with their projects and development, while in the background, Spot Eco will continuously and dynamically manage that portfolio to make sure commitment terms stay low while workloads utilization kept high and always running at optimal pricing. I think you can simply look at it as customers with Spot running on their environments are using a discounted rate similar to RI and savings plan, but keeping all the benefits of on demand. Kind of long overview, but
no, that's fantastic. No, I appreciate that. I think we needed kind of that deliberate walkthrough, and that was really helpful to kind of set the table. And I will tell you, when we go through the video editing, I will make sure to put the link up here exactly where your hands were at the time that you mentioned that. So I think that's a great start. And to pivot from here, maybe we can go to Kevin. And I was on recently on the Spot website, and I was admiring, which now I've learned there's a really great chart, a graph on the Spot website, main site. Just kind of scroll down about halfway through the page. I found out that it uses before and after plugins, so now I'm kind of looking for ways to leverage that. It shows kind of hey, here's the way things used to be, which was what Hong was explaining. And then, with the Spot platform, here are the ways things can be. And that's the introduction of the Spot RIs. And so I thought, Kevin, since Hong kind of talked through the differences a little bit, and, you just mentioned a minute ago when you were responding to Todd's comment that, hey, you kind of started from building from the bottom up. Can you talk about a little bit about what's under the hood from a Spot perspective that allows for that whole, Spot instances kind of model and what that looks like?
Yeah, absolutely. So when we take a look at things from Spot, everybody knows what CI/CD is, right? Everyone knows continuous integration and continuous deployment. But what happens after deployment? Right? What happens after it leaves? It leaves the GitHub. It's all been checked. It's all been figured out. You've run all your scans and everything. It's gone out the door. Who's making sure that that's actually scaling? A lot of the applications that go to the cloud don't sit static. Usually you're not talking about a single application sitting on a single VM and, everything's hunky-dory and, every now and then you need to change. We have hyperscaling applications nowadays, right? And this is, it's not a new thing anymore, but it is a different way to manage, especially in the cloud. So when that application goes to the cloud, if it's wrapped in some sort of container, or if it's on Kubernetes, or even if it's straight on a VM, usually it scales in some way, shape, or form. And especially these large scale applications that meet events and demand, they might scale up during the week, they might scale down over the weekend, or it might be vice versa, depending on your business. How are you making sure that that application, even though it's gotten out of your CI/CD process, is continuously optimized once it hits the cloud? How are you making sure that that next VM, that next compute purchase in the cloud is the best purchase that you're going to make for that application? And that means both size, that means financially, and that means securely, right? And that's what we want to look when we kind of look at cloud ops, what we're trying to solve for. And what we're looking at is who's looking at those applications as they're running in production 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, 365 days a year, and make sure that actual scaling, that the SLOs of the application are being met, but then that application is actually running on the right type of compute. And it can land on different types of compute when it's up there. It can land on Spot instances. It can land on reserved instances, which we're talking about with commitments. It can land on demand. Our hope at Spot is that our customers never pay on demand price. We never want anybody to pay on demand. That's worst case scenario. We'd love for you to be running on spot instances or reserved capacity. And not only that is we don't want to have to tell your DevOps teams how to manage that stuff, is we want to do it for you. And what I mean by that is as your application's running, if you deploy with Spot, Spot's going to take care of managing that application and using the blend of Spot, reserved, and on demand where it makes sense for your application. And specifically on the RIs, which we're talking about today, is Eco is constantly monitoring what capacity that you're using and then altering your reserved commitments in the cloud. Now, how can we do that? AWS has a lot of different mechanisms, so does Azure, so does Google, on ways that you can actually make reserve capacity a little bit more flexible than your typical 1 to 3 year commitments. I'll use AWS for an example. They have a reserved instance marketplace. We can actually buy and sell reserved instances, not savings plans, but reserved instances on this marketplace. So Eco can build what's called a portfolio for you. It will buy some savings plans, it will buy some RIs, it will exchange RIs on the marketplace. And by doing this, we can lower your commitment time, lower your costs, and increase your flexibility in the cloud.
Wow, that's there is a lot there. And just kind of again going back a number of years and thinking about some of the work that we were doing and the effort that it took, to analyze resources, et cetera. It's kind of beautiful, poetic to see all this kind of coming together with the automation piece that's really allowing that. And I know I'm looking at our attendee list. We've got a number of people from a target market for PTP organization is life sciences. We've got a lot of organizations that are doing some really interesting things, leveraging lab data and moving up in the cloud with data management and doing bioinformatics and things like that. And so workflows that require high performance compute, a lot of massive auto scaling at periods of time, and then kind of shut down over periods of time. And just thinking about that and how many possibly on-demand resources are being used, albeit, not for long periods of time, but, how do you look at those workloads and optimize them? So I think there's a lot there. And again, being able to kind of apply this visibility and that through some of these tools, let Hong plug things in and then, just take a look and see what we can come back with. But I think that's I would call it a revolutionary change in the industry. So that's exciting. So thanks for that, Kevin. So Todd, wanted to come back to you kind of on the CloudCheckr side. So there's been, some really great publications over the years from the CloudCheckr team. The 2022 infrastructure report that kind of focused on 300 or so cloud decision makers. Only a third of them reported that they use cloud purchase options like RIs or savings plans or spot instances very effectively. What are some of the pain points that explain this, and how do you see them being able to solve that?
Sure. Yeah. I think it's about fear of commitment, fear of getting it wrong. When you talked about the reserved instances, both Kevin and Hong did, but it's a 1 year or even a 3 year commitment. That's a long time in cloud computing or computing in general. 3 years from now, who knows what technology advances will happen? 3 years ago, savings plans didn't exist. So if you're going to make a commitment to Amazon or Microsoft for the next 3 years, you have to not only make a gamble on what your computing environment, your needs are going to be, but what new technologies those vendors are going to come up with. And so there's this big risk. I liken it to, I wrote an article a few years ago about electric vehicles, and there's something called range anxiety, just this fear of what happens if I need to drive somewhere and there's no charger and I'm running out of range, and I call it cloud anxiety. There's this same idea of, well, what if I guess wrong? What if I'm in this pun intended spot, right? And I have a problem. And that's why automation, I keep coming back to automation, is so important, because it handles it for you, and you determine what level is, and the automation takes that in. It's very much like a financial advisor that says, tell me when you want to retire. Tell me what your risk level. Are you conservative or growth oriented and so on? And then you let them handle it. You don't check the market. You don't check your balance every day. You can't do that. And so that's the biggest concern we saw in that report, was really that fear of commitment or the risk, the anxiety. And that's why I'm excited to see this is basically an automated portfolio manager for you.
Yeah, I think portfolio manager is the right way to look at it. I mean, it's really, are you going to do this on your own? And the answer could be yes. And when you do it on your own, you'll probably hit the easy button, right? You'll probably go in and see I think it's up to 17 or 18 different options that you can buy reserve capacity from in the cloud. And if you add other compute on top of that, we're going to keep it to RIs today, but the rest of the Spot platform that does Spot instances, and you add the 475 different ways to buy an instance on AWS and the 17 different ways to run a container and everything else. All of these add up, and you kind of get analysis by paralysis, or paralysis by analysis, however you want to phrase that. And you choke, and you kind of like, okay, I'm going to pick the best thing I can think of. But the best thing you can think of is not the best thing that an automated system can come up with. And you're leaving a lot of money and operational efficiency on the table. And for one workload or two workloads, you might be able to get by and it's not seen right away. But scale that up and you start spending, a good chunk of, your cash in the cloud, and things add up very quickly, right? And those little inefficiencies add up to big inefficiencies. And then all of a sudden you have people coming in over your head asking you why this cloud bill is so damn high, right? And you need an answer for that.
Yeah, I mean, I'm thinking of, XYZ customer that we've worked with, and I know Hong knows. So let's say that they're, approximately $50,000 a month in AWS spend. It's a nice size organization. And working through with them with some cost optimization, and they're like, well, just how about we'll do, say, like 25,000, even though the majority of the spend is EC2 on demand. Maybe we'll do 25,000 from a reserved instance perspective. Kind of to your point, the fear of commitment for getting it the wrong, the paralysis by analysis, we don't want to overcook it and then have some unused resources, et cetera. So let's set the bar low, and in the meantime, there's savings that they've left on the table. So I think this is a fantastic way for kind of to pull away some of the restrictions from organizations like that. So to that note, Hong, I think it would be great just to get into, what we've been able to see, maybe from a realization perspective. So, week in, week out, you're working with a lot of our customers, helping them optimize their spend, providing visibility, giving them recommendations. Can you share a little bit with the audience, just either numbers or percentages of what we've been able to save some different example customers, just to try to quantify things a little bit and give people some perspective?
Sure. So, once they become a customer, one of the first thing we would do is integrate both CloudCheckr and Spot to the environment and let these platforms go to work. With the tools, providing visibility, and our team working with them on recommendations, most of them see an average of 30% savings within, the first few months. Like Kevin was saying, and you mentioned it as well, we attack some of the easy stuff. We put them through kind of a 5-step process to maximize their savings. First we look at everything that's unused, right? These sometimes can be small, but they do add up, right? If they're not being used, we'd be really wasting money having them around. And then next, we'll work on resources that are considered idle. Meet with the resource owners and have the conversation of, is it really idle, or is it over provisioned where it barely looks like it's running? If it's not needed, state savings can be captured instantly by just terminating them. If determined that they are needed, can they be put on a schedule and where they can be turned off and back on? That will help lower some costs. More importantly, can they be right sized? Most of the time, I'm also guilty of this. A resource will be launched for testing with a more powerful version selected, knowing that it will guarantee performance. Testing can be done quicker. But if this resource is not turned off or terminated after testing, it's both idle and oversized. Once we have these resources either removed or sized appropriately, we then determine if we can commit to RIs or savings plans with the knowledge of knowing that they'll be needed for the foreseeable year. Using both models usually is the best way, balancing the discounts and flexibility. And then finally, with those in place, we would put Spot in place to help customer fully utilize, the true savings potential. With Spot, you have a catch-all kind of discount program that further reduce their costs, even with the expirations of any of these direct commitments. Customers, are continually covered with both predictable and unpredictable workloads.
So, it's clear to me that these two platforms together can drive just a massive amount of value back to cloud users. And so I just encourage anybody that's listening today to reach out. Reach out to PTP. We'll connect you, whether it's Hong or other members of our team, the CloudCheckr team, the Spot team, and we can kind of plug some of these tools in, do some proof of concept, show you what we can do and the value that we can bring, and we can really roll up our sleeves from that perspective. So there's a lot there, and we've gotten into a lot of detail today. And obviously, if there's more questions, we certainly reach out. While we had people here, though, I think there's some really great insight on this panel team, and so I wanted to actually take kind of a step back from just the pure cost piece, and let's talk into cloud ops and some visibility and things that we're seeing, just to get some perspectives, because I think we've got some great panel members that are communicating with a lot of different organizations that I think could benefit from those that are listening today. So Kevin, to you, I know you're obviously in your role having a lot of conversations with customers around, quote unquote, cloud ops. Maybe just share with us a little bit about what's changed or what's changing because of cloud adoption growth, how cloud ops fits into that, and maybe what you and Spot are doing to help customers with that. Just kind of maybe a little bit larger perspective for everyone.
Yeah, I think cloud ops is really, it's not one person or one team. Cloud ops is how are you functionally using the cloud. And not just that you're touching it or using a certain technology on it, but like how well are you handling that on a day-to-day basis? And that really pulls in three concepts for us, which is FinOps. How are you fiscally responsible for what you're doing in the cloud? And that goes all the way from, what's your commitment? What is your, relationship with whatever provider that you're working with? What type of discounts are you taking advantage of? What type of instances are you taking advantage of? What type of payment models? And then that aligns very closely with DevOps, because DevOps is what's actually controlling the keys to the castle, so to speak. Depending on how exactly your organization is set up, you might have DevOps that's very integrated into the dev team. You might have a DevOps team that's more in the ops team. Either way, the concept of DevOps is what's getting your code from the fingertips of the developers to actually running in the virtualized infrastructure in the cloud. So blending those two together, how do you allow that DevOps team to move fast? And this is part of the cloud op concept. It's moving fast. It's not just using the cloud, but the reason we went to the cloud wasn't cost at the end of the day. OpEx isn't necessarily cheaper than CapEx. In fact, I can come up with a lot of scenarios where a CapEx model is a lot cheaper than an OpEx model. Yep. We went to the cloud to make us fast, right? To allow people to push code to production way faster than we were doing before, to get ideas that we had in the organization found out and verified without having to go and lay out these capital expenditures, right? So cloud has all these bells and whistles and tools and everything engineers can do. So how can you allow them to move fast but then keep them fiscally responsible? Those two teams have to talk to one another. And then the third pillar is SecOps. And you really have to think about, if I'm allowing the dev team to move fast and I'm saying, great, you have this cloud API you can use. I don't even know what 700 of the endpoints do, but I'm at least happy with the cost of the cloud. You still have a security angle. And Spot, the full platform, when you look at it, outside of our eyes and everything, we have different mechanisms for this. We have a way for DevOps teams with our Ocean and Elastic Group products for people to feel comfortable with how they're landing their applications in the cloud and how those are scaling. That's backed up with Eco, which we've been going in depth on today, which is for anything that doesn't land in Spot capacity that's managed by the Spot platform, but is managed on demand, you can get those savings. But then also security. Are you sure what you're using is secure? Are you sure it's locked down properly? Are you sure your resource management in the cloud is what you expect it to be? When you can put these three different pillars together and you can look at your organization, you can say my finance group is talking to my DevOps group is talking to my security group, and it feels like they're working together all with the same goal in mind, then you've achieved what we would consider cloud operations.
Really, really well said. And I recall, probably a year ago having a conversation around a cloud center of excellence that's, part of that, virtual team within organizations that makes, kind of bridge some of that communication and make sure that workflow is happening so that organizations are on the same page with the right level of governance and visibility. And, your point around the kind of why cloud perspective, I couldn't agree more. There are times, where you can recommend for, static organizations that aren't growing, that, pushing everything from a data center that they own physical infrastructure to the cloud isn't the right thing. But like our customer base, particularly biotechnology, continues to tell us our most important precious resource is time. And we've got it, the clock is ticking on when we can prove out our therapies or our treatments. Now, that said, you've got the data scientists that are pushing, and then you've got, CFO and finance that needs to know, hey, we've made plans based on budget for us to be able to run, given our current funding for a certain period of time. Can you ensure that we're doing this, in an optimized manner? And so, to your point, bringing those components together, DevOps or data science plus the FinOps piece, I think that's really well said. And providing, these platforms, these tools, it's a combination, right? That's where the CCOE comes in. For those that are interested in that, you can look on our website for previous conversations that we had that were, I think, really engaging there. But these are tools that help provide that information that makes a CCOE run really effectively and keeps an organization on track. So thanks a lot for that, Kevin. So on the FinOps piece, transition back to you, Todd, because I think that's an important one for us to kind of maybe dig into with another question is, maybe speak a little bit just to the transformation that organizations can expect implementing a FinOps practice if they don't necessarily have one already, and how do those expectations compare to the transformation really that takes place, kind of a cause and effect basis?
Sure, thanks. And just to piggyback on what Kevin was saying is that, moving to the cloud, of course, we want to help you save money, but in the end, you might end up spending more because what you find is it's more efficient. You find that, okay, those workloads that I was running in the data center, there's a variable cost there, and there's a different variable cost in the cloud, and it's cheaper in the cloud. So I'm going to start moving those tasks over to the cloud, and my overall cloud bill might go up, but my IT bill is going to be lower. I'm doing things more efficiently. So that's part of what the FinOps model or practice is identifying that variable nature. How much more does it cost me to add another customer, and where is it best to do that, in the data center, in the cloud? And I can just spin things up in the cloud and spin them down when I lose a customer or something happens. So FinOps, we're joining the FinOps Foundation, and I'm FinOps certified. They have a concept of maturity, and they call it crawl, walk, run. And so the first stage, you're just learning, you're sharing this new concept of FinOps among the organization. It's great if you have a cloud center of excellence. Not everybody does, but we encourage that. But what you're trying to do is to get some accountability of cloud costs through the development team, the engineering team, the IT team, and have everybody understand, oh my gosh, I'm costing the company this much money, and I go home on the weekend and I'm not using that server, and it's still, I didn't realize it's costing the company every hour, even when I'm not using it. So that's part of it, is just exposing that accountability, getting some cost management out there, and then you want to optimize things, and then you want to understand, well, maybe I should spend more on the cloud because I get these benefits from it. So it's not purely cost savings, it is financial operations.
Good stuff. So to kind of wrap, at least from the platform perspective and thinking about both tools, and I want to come back to Hong on this one, is so we introduced Spot into our environment a while ago. Obviously, CloudCheckr's been kind of a day one PTP tool that just allowed us, kind of that financial piece and the security visibility and that starting point. But now, with your experience leveraging both tools, maybe share just a little bit about what our customers can expect having both of these powerful tools part of our platform.
Yeah, sure. With CloudCheckr, customer can expect a fully centralized cloud management platform, with cost control, security best practices, and resources optimization. Yeah, there's a feature in CloudCheckr, snapback features, like it's historical reporting that goes back to 7 years, from the day that you have it set up with your environment. It's very powerful. You can use it to show progress, to higher upper management, to show them, hey, a month ago, either from a savings perspective or security perspective, we were at this point, but now we've worked towards, at this point a month later. So that feature I find very powerful. They also have a module, the compliance monitoring module, with 30 plus different standards that you can keep track of progress. If you have auditors that need to know if you're meeting certain compliance, you can simply just export that, or even give them access just to that part of the platform. And detailed reporting I've used so many times to track down spikes on costs from a customer, even though they don't really have good tagging. But with the detailed reporting from CloudCheckr and a few other reports, I was able to go drill down, get to what resources to the hour when that spike happened, give it back to the customer, and they were able to locate what happened and who the resource owner are. So they could expect all that from CloudCheckr. And then with Spot, there's Elastic Group and Ocean, as Kevin mentioned, but we're just really only scratching the surface here with the RI program Eco. I also want to say, we have one customer who purchased a savings plan directly with AWS, and then they became our customer. Since they are our Peak Plus customer, we go through a monthly review with them of their cloud environment, where we highlight all the security items, utilizing the platforms, but also go through how they've been trending from a spend and savings perspective. We were able to use the data from both CloudCheckr and Spot and show them that their savings plan were only saving them like 27%, where CloudCheckr and Spot were able to locate an additional 20% on top of that. So, they were very happy with that finding, and I think they ultimately just like, okay, we'll just probably just drop the savings plan and let Spot, handle all that management.
Yeah, I mean, in thinking about those are big numbers, right? So you're either talking about percentages that allow you to stay in budget, or percentages that allow you to free up some cash that's already been budgeted to allocate in other places that inside the IT organization or data management organization that needs it. So those are impactful numbers for sure. And you mentioned tagging, and see, this has been great with all these comments that come up during this conversation, I'm thinking, oh, we've got a great blog on our site from Rick Pitcairn around the importance of tagging and why that makes sense. And so check that out if you're interested. But yeah, right here on that site. So thanks for that, Hong. That's fantastic. So so with Kevin, and I know that there's been a lot of announcements recently from Spot just around the portfolio and expanding the product, et cetera. Would love just, before we wrap, if you could give us a sense of, what's kind of coming from those announcements, what's on the horizon, things like that I think we should be looking forward to.
Yeah, I mean, we got a lot of announcements going on. We just actually announced, publicly, we just acquired another company, Filament. So, sorry, Todd, you're no longer the most recent acquisition on it. But we continue to look to grow both organically and inorganically in the market. We're expanding our customer base. As a business, I can't necessarily, say the numbers anymore because we're a public company. I'm not a startup anymore. But from where we came in at NetApp, we've doubled in our first year under NetApp, and we're going to more than double in our second year at NetApp. And that's outside of the acquisitions that we've put on top of this. So we're building a real cloud portfolio of services that no matter where a customer is in their journey on the cloud, we're going to be able to meet you where that is. Our most recent acquisition is all about a no-code, low-code solution to integrating our products together. Filament is a great product that was actually geared towards incident response management. But the real IP and win there is around a solution where you can literally come in and drag and drop components together and have them magically work together, and being able to audit those and reuse them and push them out to your end users. And this really enables dev teams and SRE teams, no matter where you are, to easily integrate without us just telling you, hey, here's an API. Right. And that's what we used to do, is like our answer for everything, if you wanted to integrate, was here's an API. But now we're not going to tell you that. We're going to tell you there is an API. If you want to use it, you want to spend your dev cycles and engineering to do that, you can. Or we have a system that will automatically integrate you into the systems you use today, whether those systems are ServiceNow or Kubernetes or Datadog or PagerDuty. There's a lot of outside things that come together, and you can integrate with those systems, and it will make it very easy. And then going forward, look for a lot of news around how we're going to bring, CloudCheckr and the Spot platform together even more. It's a very exciting space. Spot Security, which we've been developing and we've announced on our side, will be blending together with a lot of the features you see from CloudCheckr and making that offering even stronger. And then also look for one of our other recent acquisitions of Data Mechanics to really press forward in the big data and the Spark world, where we're able to operate, I think, infrastructure better than anybody else in the industry, and offer pure open source delivery of Spark, and look for more solutions like that from us in the future also.
There's a lot going on. I don't think that you're bored when you wake up every morning. I can guarantee that. So we get asked a lot, from customers like, okay, well, I've got, CloudWatch and CloudTrail, and, why do I need these extra platforms? And so I have been living in a managed services world for over 20 years. And so, I kind of live in this efficiency of operations perspective. But I just want to share for the attendees that, if you're thinking that way, like, hey, that there's native tools in these cloud platforms, that's fantastic. And some of that data from those native tools feeds into these platforms. But some of the things that you're hearing today come from the innovation from the third parties that say, hey, we're going to let AWS build a fantastic platform, or Azure build a great platform to be able to deliver, applications up in the cloud. Our job is different. Our job is to help you, organization XYZ, leverage those in the most effective, efficient, secure ways. And so I think some of the things that you heard today really reflect that innovation from the Spot team, from the CloudCheckr team, and how you bring all that together and empower end users or partners like us that are trying to help those end users just to embrace the cloud. So, any of us here amongst these organizations would certainly love to talk with you more if you've got any specific questions there. And we've covered a lot today, and I think that we've probably maybe overwhelmed, but I thought give a really great amount of information and instruction kind of back to the attendees. Before we part, I just asked, is there any parting comments from any of you, anything that we didn't necessarily get to that you might want to share before we wrap with the attendees this afternoon?
I have a thought. I was glad to see security came up a couple times because I always try to remind people, even if we're doing a talk specifically about cost savings, that the cost of a security breach can far outweigh any savings from any cost optimization tool, let alone the cost of the tool itself. So security, but also reliability. I'm looking at the well-architected framework on another screen here that reliability, availability, the cost of downtime, again, can be devastating. So cost optimization has to factor in those costs as well.
No question. Yeah, and that brings up the whole, a whole other conversation around well architected that obviously, Hong has with a lot of people, and the things that CloudCheckr can provide with the visibility into the list of best practices and prioritization there really helps that funnel process for customers say, wow, that's a lot, but what do I start with that's going to have the most impact? And then selfishly, we'll tell you, we've got kind of a suite of services that incorporate that, but also let's go get data from your end user devices, and put those into an XDR engine so we can see all that north, south, east, west traffic, because it all kind of comes together and paints the picture from a security perspective. So appreciate that, Todd. SecOps is a big one for sure.
I would say don't try and build everything internally on your own. Your developers love to do that. I was one once myself who never wanted to take anything off a shelf and code everything all at once. With some experience, you realize that's inefficient. There are tools out there. It doesn't even have to be the tools we talked about today, but there's tools out there that help you be more efficient in the cloud. Use them, right? There are tools that actually make a difference for your cloud use. We believe we are one of those. So, selfishly, I'm going to say, I believe the Spot is the best one out there. But if we talk very generically about cloud ops, and we talk generically about what you need to do in the cloud, it's impossible just to take everything, from an open source repository and build a team to do it on your own. It's going to be very expensive and time consuming. Decide what you want to be good at, decide what your business needs you to be good at, and then decide whether you need to do that in-house or you want to partner up with either a partner or technology or something like that to accelerate yourself faster in the cloud, because it's complex, right? You don't get to decide what you install in the data center. You instantly start with thousands of endpoints that you can magically use to do different things. And having the right strategy and the right partners going forward in the cloud is very important to that.
Question. Hong, any parting thoughts from you, or you shared everything that's on your mind for today?
No, just check our website, right? Look at my video, look at all the videos we have, come talk to us. Collectively with Spot and CloudCheckr, we definitely formed a great team and provide a very great, solution to customers.
You bet. To all of you that joined us this afternoon, thanks for taking a little time out of your day. We'll give you about 8 minutes back from the allotted hour, but thank you very much. Todd, Kevin, Hong, thank you for taking time out of your busy schedules and partnering with PTP. Always feel like these are great conversations, and the more empowered I think our overall customer base is with information to kind of the better decisions that they can make. So thanks to the attendees, thanks to the panelists, and just hope everybody has a great rest of your week. Take care.
Thanks, everybody.